there, this is Jacques from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to part 6 of our 6-part Conspiracy Take the Crown full set review. Today we're going to look at all the colorless cards in the set, so that includes colorless conspiracies, the artifacts in the set, as well as the lands. And if you've been watching the channel this week, you probably saw us go through the whole color pie, but if you missed it, we do have a playlist on the channel. If you want, you can watch the whole series of 6 and get the complete set review at this point. Now, before we get into the set review, one quick reminder. I have mentioned this earlier in the week, but I have started putting some links in the description below for products that you can pick up on Amazon that are, of course, Magic the Gathering related. So if you go into one of those links and you decide to make a purchase, maybe you find a good deal in there, and you purchase through the link, I'll actually get a small percentage back so that I can put it back towards the channel. And there's a lot of things I'm trying to do with the channel, get some new equipment, some giveaways, stuff like that, and it will go a really long way. A lot of folks have asked how can they support the channel if they can't do Patreon, so this is another option, and so far it seems like it's pretty successful. So I want to thank everyone who's already checked out those links and even made some purchases already at this point. Really appreciate that, and as always, I really appreciate the patrons as well. But even if you can't help financially, just watching the videos and liking them really helps us out a lot too. One of the links I'm going to include this time around for Amazon is going to be an Eternal Masters box. I actually was just shopping around on there and found Eternal Masters for retail price, including shipping, which I have never seen before. So I realize at this point a lot of people already have their Eternal Masters. Like, I bought some for the channel and paid more than retail price, unfortunately. So I'm not really in the market to buy any more at this point. But if somebody is out there, it was a great draft format, I'm just going to include that link just because I thought that was amazing. I've never seen that before. I'll also include some conspiracy links as well. Having said that, let's get into the real business at hand. That's the cards. We got a lot to look at, so let's get going. We're going to start off with the conspiracies, and we have Echoing Boon. This is one of the hidden agenda conspiracies, and this is actually pretty powerful. I mean, forking a sorcerer instant basically for free is kind of awesome. And the first time you do it, it'll be a surprise. After that, it will be out there for everyone to see, but it is also possible to potentially draft a couple of these and have a couple different spells linked to it. That's kind of cool too. Now, some of the big sorceries in the set, and I'm thinking of a lot of, like, maybe even the Council's Judgment cards, for example, are very powerful, very sweeping effects. So being able to fork those could be game-changing. So this is actually pretty decent. It's an uncommon. You're going to see this floating around in the drafts, and if you happen to pick it up early, you might be able to follow suit by getting some very strong instants or sorceries to go along with it. Emissary's Ploy. This one's a rare, and it does something a little more dramatic to the game. And I think it's pretty cool, because you just have to remember to choose a number before you draw your opening hand. I could see people forgetting to do that, but as long as you remember to do that, this is a really cool card, because now if you pick this up early in the draft, for example, you can start thinking about creatures of a certain converted mana cost, 1, 2, or 3, which might not even be in your color. So for example, I'm drafting along, I'm getting into a couple colors, and then I notice there's some really good 3-drops coming around in colors that I'm not in. If I have this, it's fine. I can just pick them up and I'll still be able to put them in my deck and play them. That's actually pretty cool, and it's going to make you rethink the way you draft. And I think that's the coolest part of cards like this. Next we have Hold the Perimeter, and this actually makes me smile. I think this is pretty funny. Basically what this card is doing is one of the big themes in Conspiracy, and that's trying to encourage attacking and action early and often in the games. It feels like they're trying to speed up the games. In the original Conspiracy, it was very frequent that games would end with people getting decked. I think they're trying to avoid that this time around. So cards like this really encourage just fighting right from the beginning. And it's so funny because you play this, you get yourself a 1/2 defender, you give everybody else a 1/1 goblin that can't block, so it can't really do anything but attack. They really have no choice but to attack each other, right, to get value out of it, or else find a way to get rid of your token and just all decide to attack you. One of the two will happen. But I think it's hilarious. I think this is a great card. Hymn of the Wilds. This one's a mythic, and this is another one that really makes you think about how you're drafting. So notice it says you can't cast instant or sorcery spells. Now you can still pick up artifacts, enchantments, lands, of course, and creatures just get more efficient. And this is a set with some very efficient creatures to begin with, so I think this card is no joke. As long as you pick up this card early in the draft and you can plan around it a little bit, I think this is very strong. You can get some really economical creatures, and at the same time you can still get the enchantments and the artifacts that can help bolster them. fantastic. A little awkward if it comes like in pack 3, right? And you've already picked up a bunch of instants and sorceries, so it might not be good there. But a lot of times, if you get this early, this would be really fun to draft around. Next we have Sovereign's Realm, and this one's a mythic. This one's crazy. I mean, this really changes the way you draft, right? Because with this card, as long as you draft this early and you can build around it, just pick the best cards, right? You just get the best card. Doesn't matter what color it's in. It gets passed to you. Hey, this is the strongest card in the pack. I'll take it. Next pack, strongest card in the pack. I'll take it, so on and so forth. The only kind of awkward part about this card is you still need to make sure you have a 40-card deck to play it, and Conspiracies don't count towards the 40 cards. So you know that in a regular draft, you get, what, about 45 cards or so. This will be one of them, so now you're down to 44. And if you picked up any other Conspiracies, or if you're playing like Animus and Predation and you tried to exile some cards or something like that during the draft, that could put you down below the 40 threshold, which means if you get caught off guard and that happens, then you can't play this, and you have to just make a regular deck out of whatever you drafted, which might not be very good if this was kind of the crutch you were using, right? So that could be a little bit awkward. If you draft this late in the game, you have to really think about, is it good at that point? And a lot of times it probably won't be. This is something that's going to be great in pack 1, but probably really bad in pack 3 because you kind of missed the opportunity. And by that point, you may have already drafted a number of other Conspiracies or something like that, which could be really awkward. Now, if you do go all in on this thing, I think it could be quite good. You do have to take into account you're going to basically be playing almost every card you pick, if not every single card you pick. So there'll probably be some stinkers in there. But at the same time, it doesn't matter because you can always pitch those for land if things work out that way. You also start the game with 5 cards instead of 7, so there's a little bit of a disadvantage there. But in a multiplayer game, I don't think that will be a big deal. I mean, unless people are really afraid of this card when they see it out and they just figure, let's just take them out before things get crazy with whatever they have in their deck, which maybe is possible. I don't know. I'd actually like to see this card played in like a cube too. I think it could be really incredible in a cube. I mean, that goes for all these Conspiracies. They, I think, transition in very interesting ways into cubes, but this one in particular could be pretty interesting. And the last thing I'll say about it, I heard that this is maybe a nod to Hearthstone. I've never played Hearthstone, so I don't really know how the game works, but apparently you start off with 5 cards, and I guess the way you get your resources is similar. It's not like Magic where you have to draw into lands, so I found that kind of funny, if that's true, if they were thinking that or not. But anyway, awesome card if you can get it early, maybe not so good if you get it late. Next we have Summoner's Bond, and I think this is actually pretty interesting. It's uncommon, so they'll be around, and it basically lets you get a tutor effect. So you pick 2 creatures, you kind of link them together. When you play one, you get to tutor for the other. There's some value to be had there for sure, especially if there's some sort of synergy between those creatures, for example. It's even better. The only time this could get awkward is if like you happen to draw the 2 creatures in your opening hand or something like that. But really, I think it's still worth running regardless. I mean, you take a small risk, but you're not really losing anything when you pick up these Conspiracies. They just go in your command zone and they sit there, and if you use them, wonderful, and if you don't, wonderful. The only thing you're really losing is whatever else you might have picked in that pack, right? Other than that, there's no downside to running a Conspiracy. There can only be upside typically. So I think this is pretty cool. I wouldn't mind running this for sure, especially if I had some cards with synergy. The other option is you just pick some cards that you happen to draft multiple copies of, and that increases your chances to get value out of this. And our last Conspiracy today is Weight Advantage. This one's interesting. I feel like this might be better in a cube than in the actual Conspiracy draft. And the only reason I say that is there's not a whole lot of high toughness creatures in the set. I mean, there's some in blue. We're going to look at an artifact in a little bit that is a higher toughness. But this is a very aggressive set. You see a lot of high power creatures with lower toughness more than anything. So this might be okay. I mean, if you get it early, you could definitely look for the creatures with higher toughness and try to exploit this the best you can. But I do feel like that might be harder to do than some of the other strategies that you see here. Alright, let's move on to artifacts. We have one brand new artifact, the rest are reprints, but this new one is an interesting one. It's Spy Kit, and mainly this is in the set because it plays really well with the Conspiracies that say choose a creature, and then whenever you flip the Conspiracy, pay mana, this creature gets X, Y, or Z. And there's one of those in each one of the 5 colors. We got to look at them throughout the week. So this, in essence, just turns any creature into all creatures. So it will work with those conspiracies. I think that's pretty cool. It's an uncommon. I almost feel like in some ways it would be better if this was a common in the set, just because those conspiracies are all common and there's 5 of them. So it would be cool to see more interactions with those conspiracies. But maybe it would have been overkill at common. That might be why it landed at uncommon. It's a pretty cool idea though, and whenever you see something in Magic that we've never seen before, especially at this point in the game, it's exciting. Like, we've never seen this ability before. It's never showed up anywhere, so it really has captured people's imaginations. And a lot of folks are thinking about, what can you do with this card? Like, you could put this on one of your creatures, you could then give it to your opponent with like Donate or Humble Offering or something like that, and then use Maelstrom Pulse or Eradicate to like wipe their board. Like, yeah, that's maybe a little deep, but at the same time it's really fun. Like, that's a pretty cool idea, and I'm sure somebody will find something to do with this. I mean, I don't know if there's going to be an efficient combo like in Vintage or Legacy with this card, probably not, but you never know what people brew up. I think this would be really fun in Commander though, to just do crazy hijinks like that, and maybe even some cubes you could throw this in. I think is really fun in the Conspiracy draft. So yeah, there's a lot of use for this card. It's a lot of fun, and like I said, it's exciting to see something that we've never seen before. This feels almost like an unglued, unhinged card in some ways, but it's really amazing. Or next we have Bronze Sable, and this is the first reprint of the bunch. And this is a funny card because I think the first time I played this card, I want to say it was in Theros, and it was actually really good in that limited environment because 2-drops were really important, and a lot of times you didn't have enough 2-drops, so playing this was actually quite good a lot of the time. Then later it was reprinted in a core set, and it was like horrible there because core sets are so fast that having this 2-1 just plain didn't matter at any time. So it's hard to say off the bat without playing how good this is going to be in Conspiracy, like how high of a pick you'd want to make this. I kind of feel like this would be a lower pick though, just because Conspiracy, much like core sets, does feel a little bit faster, and in multiplayer games, again, 2-1s with no abilities might not mean all that much in the long run. Next we have Hedron Matrix, so a little nod to the Eldrazi's there. I always kind of feel like typically 4 as an equip cost is a little high, but in a limited game, and especially a limited multiplayer game, it's actually quite good, especially considering you're getting a pretty big buff to your creature most of the time. I mean, converted mana cost converted to +X/+X is strong, especially on a creature with evasion. So I'm happy to run this, especially considering this is a rare, so you're not going to see it that often, but there's not a lot of fantastic enchantments or artifacts, so a lot of the enchantment artifact hate might sit in people's sideboards. A lot of folks just might not run it, and if they don't, you might get away with one here. So keep that in mind. This is a little better maybe in this set than it would be in a lot of others. Hex Flake Golem. This one's not super exciting for me. I mean, it costs 7. I mean, if you're really looking for some big creature at the 7 spot, it's there for you, and it's not unplayable. But 5/7, it doesn't have any evasion. It's just kind of there and slumbering. It doesn't feel like I'm going to get a whole lot of value out of this thing. I mean, I'm sure it's there to try to encourage people to not attack you because it's just a big blocker that's just very cumbersome. And if they're not attacking you, they're probably attacking somebody else. So in that regard, it's probably better in this environment than it obviously would be in a one-on-one environment. But one thing you have to remember, obviously there's a lot of strong removal in this set. And of course, yes, every creature dies to removal. However, the impact that creature can have before the removal can get to it is what's important when you're deciding which creatures to play. So for example, if I play this 5/7, it gets chump blocked 3 turns in a row by soldier tokens, and then it gets murdered. I really didn't get a whole lot of value out of it. If I played the flyer that got in for 3 damage for the next couple turns and then it got murdered, well, at least I got my money's worth out of it. And that's how you have to evaluate these cards when it comes to an environment with such cheap and common removal spells like Murder, Deathwind, Flame Slash, and Prey Upon. I mean, there's going to be removal all over the place. Horn of Greed. I actually kind of like this card. It's just kind of fun and silly in a way. You put it down and you're just trying to kind of make friends. I mean, it's a symmetrical effect, so it's not really going to help you more than it's going to help anybody else necessarily. Unless you have some ramp in your deck, there are some ways to dig for more lands in green, so then it does give you a distinct advantage, which is nice. But I think for the most part, you're just putting this down to make friends, and that is important. That political part of a multiplayer game is not something that you want to underestimate. I mean, throwing this out there may have people decide, you know what, I like drawing extra cards, I'm going to let them survive a little longer. I'm just going to go pick on someone else. Kite Sail. I think Kite Sail will be good in this set. This is another one of those cards that sometimes it's good in limited, sometimes it's not as good. I think this set it will be good. Flying is kind of a commodity. There's a fair amount of it in white. There's a little bit in blue, but there's not a ton of flying considering this is a large set. So I think that being able to give something flying, especially a large creature, for example, could be pretty good. Opaline Unicorn. This is a way to go deeper and be able to play extra colors. They're setting you up with the possibility to play 4 or 5 color decks in here, no doubt. They're giving you basic land cycling cards in all 5 colors at the common level. They're giving you this at the common level. We're going to see some lands in a few minutes that will also help with your color fixing. So the pieces are there. Wizards is trying to say, hey, if you want to go deep with colors, we're giving you the option. So I think those could actually be pretty good decks, and that's really the whole purpose of this card. Next we have Platinum Angel, and this one's a mythic, and this is kind of a fan favorite. It's been around a long time, seen a few reprints, but I see it a lot in Commander decks. I see it a lot of times in cubes. It's a fun card. It's great to play with. It has evasion, which is nice. So you get a 7 casting cost artifact creature, so no devotion to any colors to get a 4/4 flyer, plus obviously a huge upside on top of it. The only thing awkward about this card is basically your opponents are all going to have to figure out how to get rid of it, right? Because no one can win the game other than you until they get rid of it. So it will become a target. Your opponents may have to kind of join forces even to take it down, and they will take it down, but you will get an opportunity while everyone's focused on this to maybe develop your board state in other ways, which could eventually lead to a win down the road. So there is value to be had here with this card, and I'm glad to see it got reprinted in general because, like I said, it is a fan favorite and it does see play in a few places. Next we have Psychosis Crawler. Not always runnable. It's going to depend on your deck. If you have a lot of card draw and there are a lot of opportunities to draw extra cards in this set, then this is going to be pretty good for you. And overall, if you can do that, you could have a sizable creature, but probably more importantly, whenever you draw the card, you get to ping everybody. Now again, that might put a target on your back if you start hitting everybody for too much damage while you're sitting around drawing cards. A lot of folks are going to figure out that they are not going to win a game that continues like that, right? So at some point, this could be a card that turns the tables on you, but there's definitely value to be had here. It might be a better drop in the late game when you're down to just 1 or 2 other opponents, as opposed to putting this down on turn 5 when everyone's kind of looking at you like, wow, did they just play Psychosis Crawler? Next we have Rune Servitor. This is one of those cards that feels like it has to be reprinted at least every couple sets. And here it is again. It's fine. Again, it's a symmetrical effect, but it is a 2/2 for 2, which sometimes that's good and limited to make sure you're hitting cards on your curve. And 2 drops can be very, very important at times so you don't get run over in the early game. So there it is. Again, you're probably not getting any more advantage than anyone else when it dies, but at the same time, this card is here to help guarantee action. If folks get a lot of opportunities to draw cards, that means they have a lot of opportunities to play spells and keep the game moving, and hopefully people won't get decked to end the game. Alright, let's move on to lands, and this is the only new land we have, and it's a good one though. Throne of the High City. Here's what I like about this. Okay, let's talk about Conspiracy first. This is one of only 2 ways, there's a green card we saw yesterday that it does it too, that you can actually take the Monarch token at instant speed. That's actually pretty relevant for a few reasons. First off, let's say somebody has the Monarch token and they have creatures that are granted abilities because they have that token, maybe unblockable or something like that. You are not going to be the person they're going to want to attack because they know that you could simply pay 4 mana, sacrifice this, and take away that token and make a profitable block, right? Whereas if they attack someone else, they're leaving it up to your goodwill, hopefully to not do that to them anyway. Secondly, if you have creatures that get an advantage from the Monarch token, then you can just wait and pull the trigger like right before your combat, for example, to almost guarantee that you're going to have the Monarch token when you need it, as opposed to kind of crossing your fingers and hoping the turn comes back to you and you'll still have it. So that's kind of nice. You can lose it and just take it back if you need to. Also, it takes away some card advantage. If somebody plays a creature that gives them the token and you don't want them to get that card draw, you can just simply take it away. It takes away the card draw and makes the creature less efficient. So there's a lot of things you can do with it. It's a very good card in that environment. Now let's talk about other formats. I think this is actually vintage and legacy playable as well. So hear me out on this one. I know it costs a little bit to sacrifice it, 4 mana, and of course tapping this as well is almost like 5 mana. But once you do, you get the Monarch token, which means you're getting a card draw every turn. Now let's face it, a lot of Vintage and Legacy decks, they're not about beatdowns. They're about trying to finish you off in one turn and just kind of going off doing something spectacular. So you may, if you can slow down the game enough with control, you may be sitting there and drawing 2 cards a turn for a period of time anyway. And they can't counter this effect. It's a land, you put it out, you activate the ability, and that's kind of that, unless they happen to have a Stifle in their hand or something like that, from which most people don't play. But there you have it. It's the only way to really stop it, which is pretty crazy, right? I mean, maybe it's a sideboard card because you could be coming up against a Delver deck or something like that where it wouldn't be as good. But sideboard it in those matchups where it makes sense, it could be great. I'm thinking about decks like Legacy Enchantress deck. That deck's all about basically creating a shield that prevents people from attacking you while you just draw cards. This is the perfect card to just fit into that strategy. And it fits into a lot of these decks because it can be part of the mana base as well. Tapping for colorless mana. You can use it in your land count. It's not necessarily taking a spot of another card all the time. So I think this is very awesome. Again, I actually like this in Cubes and Commander as well because it's another way to bring the Monarch token into those games, and I think that's actually a lot of fun too. Alright, let's look at the reprints. Dread Statuary. This is actually pretty good, I think. Again, for all the reasons, the last card was good, where it's a land, it can't be countered, it can't be stopped. So you just simply can play this, and if someone has a board sweep, or if you have a board sweep, you get significant value out of this. The only reason I wouldn't play it, again, maybe I'm going a little too deep on colors, and I don't want to land that taps for colorless. But I could still even play this in one of my spell slots, if that's the case. I think it's good enough. Evolving Wilds. This is maybe one of the most reprinted cards in recent history, but this is a good one. I mean, this is what allows you in Limited to fix your mana, go deep with 4 or 5 colors. So this is another way at the common spot that you're going to be able to do that. Exotic Orchard. This is actually a cool reprint. I mean, what's funny about this card is it's traditionally not very popular because of the level of variance, but it is pretty good in multiplayer games. You're going to almost guarantee that you're going to get some value out of it when you have a few different players sitting down at the table. So it makes sense in the Conspiracy draft. Also, I think is good in Commander too. So it's a nice reprint. Rogue's Passage. I really like this card. It just, again, guarantees action. That's what Conspiracy is all about. Attacking in, getting across damage, and this card's going to help you do it. It's an uncommon, so watch out for these. There'll be a few going around at a draft. And really, you put this out, again, early on. The only drawback is it's colorless mana. Again, it could take a spell slot. I think it's that good. And later on, this can help you put opponents away, especially when you're down to your last couple opponents. This can really do some good things when you have a big creature on hand. Excellent inclusion. And finally, our last card of the day, it's another mana fixing land. This one it's uncommon, but Shimmering Grotto. Again, nothing to write home about here. It's just going to help you fix those colors and be able to go a little bit deeper with your strategies. So having said that, those are all the cards in Conspiracy Take the Crown. To wrap up, let me just say I'm very excited about the set. I think this is going to be incredible. The first Conspiracy was one of my favorites, and this looks just as good, if not better. I mean, there's some Eternal Masters level reprints in this set. I mean, fantastic job. And it's a wide release set. You can pick it up at big box stores if you don't have an LGS near you. And if you do have an LGS near you, a lot of LGSs are doing drafts. You could have a blast with this weekend. So hopefully everyone will get a chance to play it. I'm hoping to be able to play this sometime this week anyway, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a blast. So hopefully everyone gets the opportunity, and hopefully these videos help a little bit when it comes to knowing what's in the set and getting ready for those drafts. And having said that, as always, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks as always for watching. This video, like all my videos, was made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Even a donation of $1 helps me to keep growing this community and creating better quality content for all of you. Check out our Patreon page for exclusive giveaways and future goals for the channel. If you haven't yet had a chance to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the MTG news, spoilers, set reviews, product openings, or finance videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you guys soon, and have a great day.